Hello everyone, namaste. Hi Aravind.
Hi.
I'm really excited to do this live today as part of the International Yoga Day celebrations at Atma Yoga Shala.
Yes. Even I am very excited to be here and talk about this topic, especially the Vinyasa Kram Conference. Am I audible now?
Yes, very clear.
What time is it there?
Uh, right now it's 10 a.m.
10 a.m. Okay, cool.
So nice and bright.
Um,
It's evening for you, and you must have had a lot of classes throughout the day.
yeah, it was a long
You still
day,
look
so
very
like
energetic.
class at studio. No, I washed my face. So I was preparing for this night. That's about it. Yeah, hi,
So
guys. Thank you for joining. Yes,
I see
Nivetha.
more people are joining us. So we'll slowly get
Yeah,
started
okay.
with, because I'm really excited to know more about your journey and how you see yoga.
Okay.
So so everyone here, all of the Atma Yoga students, and even I have known you as a yoga teacher for many years now. But that
Yeah.
hasn't always been your path. So tell us about how you had this career change to yoga.
You guys?
Yes,
Am I
yes, I
audible
can
now?
hear
I'm
you.
not sure. Yeah. There's a bit of net issue. Can you
Yeah,
hear me now clearly? Yeah.
yes.
Okay, yeah. Never, never ever in my life have I ever thought that I would be a yoga teacher or leave alone being a teacher. Even practicing yoga, I haven't until I was what 32, 33. There was no at least in the way that we know it. Uh, so yeah, I was I prior to coming to yoga, I was an instrumentation engineer, and I was working in the core instrumentation engineering sector of water treatment business. So it's still live. Somebody else is there. You can just show. Yeah, okay, cool. I'm getting some ask and this is interesting. Uh, uh, I studied engineering and I was working in a corporate life, 9 to 5 job, with all the ups and downs of 9 to 5 job, uh, which I didn't like, and then happened. So, Nita, are you able to hear me? Yeah. Hi, Nidhi. Were you able to hear me? I'm not able to hear you.
Sorry, I was on mute. I didn't realize.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just telling
Actually,
them
your
that I
voice
was an
was,
engineer.
yeah.
Yeah. So it was a regular corporate 9 to 5 jobs, and which I didn't like for a long time. But there's money, and then that's how you are one among the flock uh, to go. So you keep working. So that's what I was doing.
Then what brought you to yoga?
Okay. So I think it was the year 2017, 2018. I was going through a rough patch in my life, and so I wanted to do something different. So I took up actually gardening and composting just to keep myself engaged. And then one of my cousins, she was doing yoga, so she said, "Why don't you take up yoga therapy?" And that's how. Okay, I thought, okay, why not? Somebody suggesting that, and so I went to take up yoga therapy. That was my first encounter with yoga as such, the way we practice now. So I went for yoga therapy, and that definitely changed me because I could totally understand of, in the first place, how disconnected I was from my body. I was like, I've always been thin, but when they asked me to bend and touch the ground, I was like struggling. My limbs were shaking, and then I was just like, and I'm known to be a dancer, so I learned dance. So people generally thought that I was very flexible. I myself had the idea that I'm super flexible because I can dance and I can dance for a long time. But when I went and joined a yoga program, that's when I realized that no, I'm not flexible, and it has got nothing to do with how much weight I carry in my body, and that's how my first encounter with yoga happened. And they asked me, it was very interesting because they asked me a number of questions. And how well is your sleep? How are your dreams and all those things? And these are like, that was the first point ever. I'm trying to reflect on those things. And then they taught me a few asanas, a few techniques of breathing, which I had to practice. So that was my first encounter with yoga.
So, you mentioned a couple of interesting points there about the kind of questions you were asked when you started that yoga therapy. What was the outcome of that therapy? And yeah, so you had a very physical beginning with yoga.
Yes,
So
yes.
how was it
The
physically?
outcome was, I think for me, the biggest outcome was I had to ponder on many things which I never had thought about before. Like I told you, right? They had started asking me questions about my sleep and my dreams. So, and then that's when I really started kind of self introspection at that level. And then the second level was obviously I was at a shock understanding the amount of tightness I had in my body, and then that became a goal for me. Like I wanted to get relieved of those tightness. There's this partial thing of I'm a dancer, so this should not happen to me. So that kind of a thing, and the outcome was there was a lot of interactions. So uh, for me, I think it all fitted in a way because way before I started yoga, to all the why me questions in my life, as I grew up, I had like, why God, why like Joey in Friends, why me? Had a lot of these questions, and somewhere in my search for answers of those, I started reading a lot of Indian philosophy. So there was a lot of input, but then I really didn't know how to make sense of it or how to. Though I have been reading all those things, I didn't really understand how is it going to help me in my life. Okay, that is there. There's a text, there's a concept, there's something to think about. But then in my daily life, I'm still the same person. Sometimes happy, sometimes sad, sometimes again repeating the questions. Why? So when yoga came into the picture and my therapist came, like I started asking them these questions, and that's how there was a lot of interaction which started happening because they started mentioning is the main purpose of yoga is to prevent suffering. So we all suffer, right? Like as humans, okay, we are happy, we know that we have to be happy and all those things, but somewhere or the other, at some point or the other, we suffer. So when they started explaining such things, I got a little more curious. Like, okay, how? And then how? How does yoga help to prevent suffering? And all these questions. There was a lot of interaction and talk with the therapists. And slowly it grew on me. And then one of my therapists, you ask a lot of questions. What they do first, go study. So she led me to Atma Yoga Shala, and that's where I did my first yoga teacher training, completely with no aim of becoming a yoga teacher, but only to understand what yoga is and what more is there in yoga. So that was the only reason. So many people think that you do teacher training program only when you want to become a teacher or you should have prior practice. But for me, it was not like that. For me, it was my own interest. Whether will I be able to find answer to such questions or how is this yoga going to help me? And that's how I landed meeting Joshnas and not doing challenge. Yeah.
So when you did your teacher training and when you started exploring these other sides of yoga, yoga philosophy, what kept you hooked on to this yoga journey?
I think for me, it's only one thing. It's yoga philosophy because I remember when I was doing my teacher training, at every yoga philosophy class, my eyes would brim with like kind of tears or like, oh, this is something I already know. It's something I've already read in one of my books, and that is being talked about here. And I could slowly start seeing the connection in the way the Yoga Sutras are built up, and that definitely gave me this kind of a full understanding about yoga. And then again, it didn't limit me to being there only intellectually trying to understand because one I still remember Joshna when she when we started talking, she just said, Arvind, you have studied enough. All you have to do is start practicing. So she asked me to first stop studying because it was all here, but it never translated into daily life. And that translation started to happen only when I started doing my asana practice. When I came to the mat and then you start first, Ujjayi breathing was a problem. So as beginners, you try to focus on the Ujjayi, you try to bring that Ujjayi, and then you understand that your breath is actually short. It's not long at all. And then first comes the first practical challenge of extending your breath, and then movement in coordination with the breath. And when you do that, you should be here on the mat with your breath and not like, okay, because as a student, right, like I think every yoga practitioner would relate at some point in time. When you have fellow practitioners in class, you're always looking at someone else because somebody is able to bend better than you, or somebody is able to be there and take, a little more longer breaths, and you are like already, my knee is shaking, my hands are shaking. Uh, so to moving from that point to a point where, okay, this is my practice, so I'm here for my practice. So that one statement where my teacher, like Joshna, asked me to start focusing on the practice, and that's when I think a lot of grounding happens, Nivetha, because most of the times I'm speaking my story, but I think it should be relevant to some people out there. We are a lot in our minds, and we are never in our body. Recently when I was taking a class, I realized that if we connect with our body, we might be able to find that space before we are getting angry or before we are reacting. I feel that it first typically happens in the body. But since I was not connected with the body, I was always cerebral. You react,
Mm-hmm.
and your body is giving that signal, but you are not there to receive it. Unfortunately, we are all so busy with life. So that was something I realized when I was teaching recently. So that connection to the body and trying to be grounded. For me, yoga gave me that space to take it all in and then be there and then maybe give a response, which, which could be adequate or inadequate, but still giving that space. That happened to me only because of yoga. And also, I think movement is such a gift because once you start moving physically, there's a lot of things which come as thoughts. I think they go down because those energies are going out because of your physical practice. You understand?
Correct.
Otherwise, you imagine,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, you don't move, and that energy has to come out as something. So it will definitely express as a thought. Rather when you move, I feel that a lot of the movement is going to remove a lot of energies which are going to rise up as thoughts. Yeah. So those were things, and definitely what kept me coming to the point was yoga philosophy. Something I go crazy about.
And that's incredible what you said about having these like not moving and these thoughts just being stored inside or just being in the head all the time. I was able to relate to those so much. Yeah, so it was
Yeah,
very, it's amazing that you brought it up and put it in a way where it becomes clear, like, yeah, if I'm able to move, it feels nice in a lot of
nice.
ways.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
definitely. Uh, because
so about that,
earlier also I
yes,
used to move in dance. I used to dance, but then there was a break in my dance also, the period where I was going through a rough patch. I had moved away from dance also. So you see, my movement had stopped for 3 to 4 years, and then there's a lot of things which are, which I'm not ready was happening in that time.
right.
And then again, movement is what came to my rescue. Yoga came as movement to my rescue. Yeah,
That's brilliant that you were able to become aware of what was helping and what wasn't.
yeah, definitely. Yes.
So since you've gone through all of these changes, today, like now that you've practiced for so many years, taught for so many years, what does yoga practice look like for you in a day?
Hmm. Okay. Yoga practice for me, when you ask this question, two things come to my mind. One is definitely my asana practice and my pranayama practice, which I'm doing it more often than what I used to do in my beginning. So from an instructor-led class, it has moved totally to an area of self-practice. So now if I'm totally able to practice yoga by myself, and this itself takes time. This is what I've honestly realized. Because for any yoga practitioner to just roll the mat, stand there, and do your practice, something should push you. And I think if the impulse is not strong, people are not going to do self practice. So it is always good to be in a class. I remember I used to be after my teacher training program. No matter what, I used to come daily to Joshna's class. Like, I made sure that I was there, day in, day out practicing without even thinking that one word of come and start practice. That was the one thing. And now I'm at a state where I can do my self practice in a day. So that is one thing. But what is more challenging for me is also taking yoga outside the mat. Having understood that yoga is not limited to what you do on the mat. It's a very cliche statement. I think many of them are making this statement now. But to understand yoga outside the mat is also challenging because I'm trying to stay aware of who I am. The kind of I told you that I create a space between me and the thoughts and the response.
Yes.
So most of the time when I interact, I'm not able to do that. But those moments when I'm not interacting or when I'm scrolling through mobile for a long time and suddenly you get that impulse, right? Like you get the realization, okay, what are what are you actually doing? You know, what is this? What is this? What is this that's happening right in front of you that you're keeping on scrolling? That's just one example I'm giving. And then,
Yeah.
so that kind of an awareness seeping in. I see these as moments of yoga. Or when I'm eating and after I eat something which I'm craving and I'm not liking the after effect. That awareness
Mm-hmm.
that I'm doing this out of a habit. And maybe, that thing which I thought is going to satisfy and make me happy is not making me happy afterwards. Very, very small things. So these, I think the frequency of these moments have slowly started to increase in my daily life, and that is helping me making very, very small changes. Um, so this is how I see yoga off the mat, but there's a lot more to do. And recently, I finished studying Yoga Sutras with Srivatsa Ramaswamy sir. It was
Oh,
an
yes.
eye opener for me. It was something. First of all, I was very excited. Why? Is because I'm learning from someone who learned from the Krishnamacharya, Sri T. Krishnamacharya, and then that is the first thing. Second, I have met Sir. I met Srivatsa Ramaswamy Sir, and I've been in his presence, the aura or the kind of person he is. That it's by nature, even if you don't know him, you'll garner a lot of respect. And second, the way he takes class. It's like mind blowing, and what is mind blowing about it for me was there was never an exaggeration of the concept. It
Mm-hmm.
was it is not like this is the holy Yoga Sutra. It's like there is no elevation, and he brings it down to such practical levels. And here in this program, I actually understood that we do yoga, we do the asana, we do the pranayama. What is our main aim is to meditate daily. We should develop a practice of meditating daily, and your yoga practice should lead you to that. You know, maybe initially the yoga practice is to just gain flexibility. That might be somebody's goal. But eventually, I think every yoga practitioner, if you are following yoga, if you are exploring yoga, it should lead you towards a place where you are able to sit down and meditate. Say 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes. Personally, this I see this is a very, very mandatory need. And when I realized this, few years back, my grandmom had come to stay with us. So she was over 85 or something. Okay, and she was like uh, really a very old, fragile lady, and I think she had developed cancer. But what she did was she never told everyone. There was a lump in her chest, and she tried to hide it. And then later only we found out that blood was oozing out of it, and then by the time like you couldn't do anything. So it so happened that I had to, give this lady a bath. Right? She's very old, and she's like 85, a thin, fragile figure. But then the amount of shyness she had for someone like still I'm a grandchild, for a man to make her take bath, and for me to understand that old age is true, and whether we live to that age or not, we are all traveling towards old age. And so somewhere at that point, I kind of realized that in my mind that I should overcome this limitation of physical dependency. Maybe if I'm old, I might be physically dependent on someone, but I should not feel shy at that point. You understand
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say? Because that is the truth of life. You can't be like, of course, we all want to be physically independent and till the death, but then meeting life at a point where you are physically dependent and not feeling guilt or shy about it. Because I could find them. And one of the other great realization I had was, so eventually she passed away, and my grandfather, he lived up to 101 years. But what I found was his mind was so active. Physically, he was getting like limited, but then his mind was so active, which meant that he was thinking about something else. He was asking question, and over a point of time, it became that somebody had to handle it, and that was becoming actual problem. But and then I realized that at that age, if at all I live up to that age, I should not be so mentally active, asking what happened, this happened, is somebody there, will somebody take care of me, don't leave me alone and go. Okay, all these things. So I realized that if I have to live up to that age, I should be first physically fit and healthy, so that trying to reduce the probability of a physical dependence. Second, even if I move to a point where my body becomes immobile and I'm active mentally, I should be able to sit and meditate.
Mm-hmm.
I should be able to be a lot more calm. And in Tamil, there is a beautiful saying which says like Anjula vilayadu, Ambadula vilayadu or something,
Yeah.
right? I don't know the actual meaning, but what I understand is if you don't get it now, you will not get it there, right? So
Yeah.
you have to practice now. You can't like suddenly at 60 years after retirement say, I'm going to sit and meditate. Maybe you can meditate more hours. You have more time to meditate after 60, but you can't, if you're going to start at 60, it's definitely going to be difficult for you. But if you're starting when you're 23, 24, say 5 minutes, getting into that zone of meditation, it is going to help you in your life through the working ages. And also it's going to make you a lot calm when you're old.
Mm-hmm.
So while I talk, I also remember this beautiful song in Tamil. Again, it's one of the Carnatic, so Nambi Kettavadu Yavaraya. It's a song on Shiva, and he says that like at that point in time, you will not remember to chant Om Namah Shiva. of course, religious context. But the point is, you can't suddenly at that point, because your mind is habituated to activity.
Right.
You see? And I didn't know, so this I understood previously as a concept. But then what to do? How to do? And then yoga kind of came. And then, it all fell in place when I read Yoga Sutra that you have to practice. You can't like go and, okay, I'll sit down, I'll meditate. No. You come, there is yama, there's niyama, there's how you should interact with the world, there's how you should treat yourself. And then there is asana, then there is pranayama. And why are you doing all this? Because you're doing all this to go towards a place where you're able to sit for 5-10 minutes. Sit, just be there. Like that that linking, I think that happened beautifully. Of course, I'm still struggling to meditate, still struggling to keep up with all these things, but somewhere to see the point of connection with
You
all.
summarized that so beautifully, Aravind, like with the examples that you gave about how, yeah, we need to understand the physical and the emotional reality that we can have and what we want to have when we go towards that
Yeah,
point. That's beautiful
yeah,
that
because
you.
you don't know, right? I don't know if I'm like I might die tomorrow or I might live up to 101 years, and like what am I going to be if I'm going to live up to 101 years? Everybody will want to live long, no, and I also slowly start understanding this concept of growing old maturely. So when I see my parents or when I see my friends' parents or a generation before, if you're not sane and sorted, then the generation next to you has to handle all those things, and that's become a little bit more complex, right? But if you're growing old responsibly, say if I'm becoming a father or if I'm having a child who's 18 years of old, but I take care of my health. Just imagine that 18-year-old boy or girl who's going to be my son or daughter. They're going to be happy, right? There's one less problem for them, and probably you'll be more supportive at that age. And yoga is a beautiful process which will take you through that journey. See, all these things, I'm an overthinker, so I kind of ponder over all these things
But
and
thanks to
stuff
that, we're
like that.
getting
Yes.
this within like a very short period. We're getting a nice summary. So it's like it's all for me. Also, it feels like I'm refreshing Yoga Sutras when I'm talking to you. So
Yoga
that's
Sutra is like it's like it's amazing. It's sometimes I wonder the brilliance of the people who lived at those times, and very very fortunate again I should mention to have done it with Sir. It just opened up so many doors because Ramana Maharshi, the picture you see behind, I think he has a greater influence on me in terms of reading and all those things. So a very very interesting thing which I realized recently after studying Yoga Sutra was this man, when he was 16 years boy, he just left his home and he goes to a place called Tiruvannamalai in Tamil Nadu, and he just wards off his clothes and he just wears a loin cloth and he just goes into meditation. You know, like I can't imagine a 16-year-old boy, and in those days there was no light, there's nothing. Just imagine the darkness of the forest and he's meditating. For long I used to think, what would he what is this man doing? You just it's very difficult for us to grasp like
yeah.
what this person is doing, what this person is doing. And then in this Yoga Sutra, right, like Patanjali explains that. So so he explains three steps: dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. Dharana is where you choose a particular object. It can be inside your body, any reference point, any point, your forehead, your chest, or your belly, or any point, or any object outside. And then you start looking at that object and be with that object. Of course, other thoughts will come. Did I close the door? Or what am I doing? And all those things. They come and go, but you again come back. So, and then you move to meditation, where those disturbing thoughts don't come and you're staying with the object. Or you're staying with the eyebrow center, or you're staying with a particular image of God. And then there goes to a point where you disappear. I mean, there's no feeling of I, and only the object remains. Why I'm telling this is, if you read about his life, people he's a small boy, right? So people, what they will do, why is this boy sitting like this? So they will open his mouth and they'll keep food in his mouth. Okay, but after 3 days also, if they see, he would not have swallowed the food. So I used to think, how is that even possible? But then I understand that this person was already contemplating something very deep. He was in deep samadhi, So it is, and the Yoga Sutra is a document which is like 3,000 years or before that. Okay. And this person lived 100 years before. Like I'm talking about 1928, 19. So the science is the same. It's like it's there and it's not. And whatever is written in Yoga Sutra, it's not that it is not at all possible. There are some statements which, especially the third chapters, which speak about a lot of powers which people get because by doing yoga. And if anybody reads it, it will be like what cartoon or something like that. No, there are people who have done it until quite recently. So that also was a big, there were many points in what I consider as my journey, which got, which gets connected. That also brings me to a story. Uh, it's like I learned it in my first teacher training program as to how yoga came into existence or why it came into existence. It was I enjoy these mythological stories, so I literally loved it.
Yeah.
So the teacher explained, they said like, right now how you have questions, why me? What am I supposed to do in my life?
Yeah.
The same questions existed 2000 years before, 3000 years before. So men or women or human were always curious about why their existence, what they should do. And there was a lot of confusion, disease, like how we had corona now, a lot of things, a lot of unclear moments where these people go to Vishnu, the Lord, the protector in the Hindu mythology, and they pray, like, please help us because we don't know what to do. And then, so Vishnu, the mythological Hindu god, he rests on a serpent, right? He rests on Adisesha, the serpent with so many heads. So he says that this serpent will get incarnated and will help you in the human world. So these people were praying with Anjali Mudra. So this is the Anjali Mudra in Sanskrit. In dance also you say. So they are praying, and then when they open their hands, a half a human and a half serpent fell onto their hands. So Patati in Sanskrit is to fall, and since it fell in the Anjali Mudra, he became Patanjali. You know, so that's
Oh.
how the name, they correlate the name. So this is the mythological story, and this person comes to Earth and he constructs grammar for proper communication because there was a lot of miscommunication, like how even now we misunderstand a lot of things, right? Like I say one thing, but you read another thing, even when we are talking. So he constructed grammar for right communication, and he developed medicine for, right food and medicine for the body, which is Ayurveda, and then he develops yoga. So so he gave these three for people to live a harmonious life. So, and if you see, the story is still relevant now because when I started practicing yoga, my food habits started changing, like what I want to eat or what I should eat. So, what we eat or how we maintain our health is directly related to our yoga practice. So, a slow understanding of, letting go of food's cravings and trying to eat what is right, a slow awareness develops with the practice. It doesn't come immediately.
Mhm.
And now I'm intrigued to learn Sanskrit because the texts of yoga are in Sanskrit. So I'm also kind of following all the three. They how they get in, so that you try to understand more. So that's I think that's what is the topic like. It is related. When you start with yoga, a lot of things in your daily life start changing, um, because yoga builds awareness, a lot of awareness. Uh,
This also takes me back to what you mentioned about how every day there's so many moments of awareness that you have now, like when you're eating or when you're doing any simple task. So it's just taking me back to that point. And I'm curious now, because yoga is so entrenched in your life, like in every small activity that you do, what do you think it brings out of you, or what do you experience when you share this with others, and also how do you share it with others?
I think when I'm sharing it with others, it's a pure sense of excitement. That's how it's like. Um, I sometimes I get too excited about these topics that I will go and share the same thing with my teacher. Like I'm learning chanting from Padmini Narendra. She's a very senior teacher. So to her, I'll sit and explain Yoga Sutras, or I'll sit, I felt this, I felt that. It's like somewhere I feel like I'm this kid, mommy see dog, mommy see dog, kind of a thing, right? So even when I share it with someone, it's just for the pure joy of me who was struggling to find an answer is finding this. So it's like you may not struggle to find it. So if you're able to see what I see, it's so nice. So that's the only spirit I think in which I try to share. And but of course, like I also understand that it's not everybody's Yoga Sutra can't be everybody's equal interest. And so I'm slowly trying to understand, to relate it to daily life, to talk about those things. Because if you're going to talk about soul, change, Prakriti, Purusha, and all those things, it gets a bit out of hand. So I think probably we should try to understand where the Yoga Sutras stand with respect to our own daily life. How am I able to do it um, in the daily life, where I should begin, or what I should do, all those things. So I'm contemplating on how to share them that and stuff like that.
And so I'm also curious, so you've mentioned, like, if you're able to break down a little bit more about like how your asana has practice has changed, or how your interactions with yourself have also changed. So if you're able to kind of break down your practice into all of that.
Yeah, my my asanas has been a very very slow paced change. And what I understood uh, was that, and it like you will not even realize that is the beauty. It's like many times this has happened with me. I mean, since I work at Atma Yoga Shala, and I'm like day in and day out, I interact with Joshna. So I will keep, telling to her, I didn't get this asana still. I didn't do that still. This is very difficult. And then she suddenly saw me and said, Arun, do you even see from where to where you have come? And then there's no answer to that question. You just have to accept it. That's the point. You realize that yes, I have come so far. So, asana practice is like, the down dog position, right?
Yeah.
To give you an example. So when I'm doing that down dog position for a long time, I couldn't touch my heel down to the mat at all. So struggling to push my hips up, and it wasn't. Though I knew this is, mentally you already have the picture of the asana, so you're always chasing that mental picture. I want to get there. I want to get there. I want to get there. You know what happens? You're not aware. You're not there with your breath when you're chasing that mental picture,
Yeah.
right? Because the simple thing is you stay there, you breathe. If you're not getting it today, after 10 days you will get. But what I want was, oh, still I've not got it, still I've not got it. Every time you practice, you're always chasing the perfect image, and you are not there with your breath. So when I started realizing that, and when I decided that, okay, I'm not going to chase the posture, eventually, to my surprise, one day I touched my heel. And there is no explanation I can give for it. Why it happened, which muscle stretched that I was able to take my heel. No answer. Same thing with the headstand. I learned headstand online also, and it was like I couldn't even lift the leg up to the wall. It was an impossible thing for me. Impossible thing for me. One day I was playing with my niece. I was telling her like, "Mama or like Uncle is going to go in headstand. You see. I didn't know that I will go, and then suddenly I went. It was like I myself was so surprised. So if you just keep practicing, someday it's going to come. And it is still I have the tendency of I'm not able to do complex asanas, I'm not able to do something more. But then it is again, I have to reflect on this lesson that if I keep practicing, one day it is definitely going to come because there is no other way around it. And it will come soon if you're sincere with your practice. It will, there is also a Yoga Sutra about it which says that depending on how your practice is, you will get your result. Mridu, Madhya, Matvatvat. If it's soft, you'll get a softer result. If it's a little more focused, if you're doing intense, you will get. So it's about how am I able to allocate the time and practice. So I'm with my asana practice, I'm trying to learn patience. It's teaching me a lot of patience, and it is also teaching me appreciation for people who are able to do it. And now, instead of when I was able to see another person, how are they able to do it? How are they able to do it? Now I've moved from that space and I'm observing how they are actually doing it. And whether I'm able to, okay, they are doing this. I'm able to observe. Now, can I try that? Is there a change happening? From a point of just being jealous or being desperate, it's moved to a point of learning. Oh, how are they doing it? How are they observing it? I mean, how are they doing it? How am I observing it? And if I have doubt, I'll ask them. To move that space to question, to become inquisitive again. So that's how asana practice has changed. Day in and day out.
That actually reminds me of a sutra where I think it says, please correct me if I'm wrong. It says one of the ways to reach that stage is to focus on someone who is already in that stage.
Yes. Vitaraga Vishayam Vachitam. It's like, yeah. It's a sutra which says like if you are actually mentally, upset or if your thing is down, find a Vitaragi. Vitaragi is a person who is devoid of desires. Like a person like Ramana Maharshi is already stable. So in their presence, you first become calm. So somewhere I think that is what you meant. So a person who's already there, you want to become calm. So be with a person who's already calm. So your mind will calm down. So which applies. So if you're being with a set of people who keep practicing, a set of people who is your own tribe, you meet in a group class online or in a studio class, you keep practicing, you watch and learn from each other, definitely all of us are going to move one step ahead from where we are. Yeah, nice linking on that. Yoga Sutra.
And
I used to be like jealous of you also. How is this girl able to touch her legs down and down? I know how committed you were when you were doing your TTC, and I know how your questions in the Yoga Sutra also. I'm sure that you enjoyed that. Yeah, so all these things. But now it's moved to a space where we can learn from each other. See, that progress can come with the community. That's very lovely.
And also something that you said earlier brings me to a question. So you mentioned how during your journey, like you practiced, you did your TTC, and then you have now come to this point where you're focusing on your practice. So that way you're including asana and so many other aspects to your life. I think this is a question for me and maybe also for a lot of people who are listening who are still in a space where they're doing a lot of things. Like there might still be a lot of people who are not able to take the time out to fully have yoga in their life. So what would you recommend as a way to introduce yoga into someone's life?
First and foremost is classes. You have to start practicing. So my sincere advice is join any class nearby. If you're coming to Art Nirvana, we are very happy. But even otherwise, you can join in there. Start your practice. I mean, one has to start. Otherwise, this was also what I'm telling Sir says. One has to start somewhere. Shiv Saraswati says. So you have to start somewhere, and that is definitely joining a class. For me, I think I was a lot. I wanted to be slowly when I start to understand myself as I worked in the corporate, I understood that I was a lot of people's person and I wanted to teach. I always wanted to teach. My parents are teachers, maybe it's there in the genes or I don't know. But then corporate was not allowing me that space. But nevertheless, I was in this conditioning, right? Like you studied college, you got a job, you have to work, there's promotion, there's like so many things, there's next in life, and all those things. So I was still there, and then of course you are unhappy that you are working at a place where you're not expressing the way you are, but there's a lot of conditioning. But then when yoga happened, and initially I didn't quit my job. So I was doing my job, and then Atma Yoga Shala happened. My first assignment with Atma Yoga Shala was to only write blogs. I was still a student practicing. Then slowly I was offered classes. And then that's when my teaching thing got rekindled, and there was like this thing. And slowly it pushed me to a point to understand that if I want to do something different, I have to do it now because I've already been did it. So that's when I took the decision that I'm going to quit corporate and start teaching yoga. Uh, it was a big decision. It wasn't an easy decision, but I was also privileged in some sense that there was no one dependent on me to do that. Not many, for many that might not be possible. So the first step I would say is like to start practicing yoga, and definitely I would suggest that if you are practicing yoga for 6 months, for 1 year, for 1.5 years, take the next step to learn what is more in yoga. Do a teacher training program. Not necessarily that you should become a teacher and go and teach. That's not the aim. But that space will help you delve deeper into yoga, to know what yoga offers more than what you have been practicing for the whole year. Or find a person who teaches you that. If you're not doing a teacher training program, find a person who can share that with you. So the teacher training programs are a recent trend. Like in Krishnamacharya's time, students get to learn from him. So get to learn from your teacher what more is there in yoga. And then if they direct you to something, go ahead and just see. We do so many courses, right? Like you do I see many IT people doing a lot of courses to keep their thing updated. So this is one course to keep yourself updated in this field. You can always do that, and for knowledge, nothing goes a waste. If you're not following it now, maybe at your 40th age, something will lead you back here to follow this. That's all is the mindset you should have when you're taking up a program to learn. So that way they can, after 1 year of practice or 1.5 years of practice, when they know that they can do the asana, and if they still feel that, okay, I'm here, what next? You can just take a peek into any of these programs that are being offered, try to delve a little more, and then I think that practice will take you there. No, it will take you to the next step. But it should all begin with the practice. That's why I say the first thing we should do is maybe start practicing from a teacher nearby or join a group class. You can join online. There are so many avenues for people because I started my yoga practice almost online. My classes with Joshna were online because it was pandemic and then we had to start, and so it wasn't a limitation. It is not a limitation like before. A lot of things have changed. We also handle classes now. You take classes, I take classes. So, and we have seen students progressing that way. So I think it should start. And then from the asanas, you'll move deeper into, meditation. As I said, the journey is towards meditation. And then once you're able to meditate, I think a lot of these books which I read now also, like people like Puri Mastara and like a lot of other people, right? They all talk about mindfulness meditation, being more aware. And here, yoga is giving that way for people who are struggling with mindfulness and meditation. Right?
Correct, yeah.
Yoga has led me to do my first Vipassana trainings.
That's huge.
For 10 days, right? Like, yeah, that's huge for me. It's like if you had asked me before yoga to sit silently without anything, I would have ran away. But somewhere it gave me the courage to go and try the Vipassana. I mean, there are people who do Vipassana even without yoga. I mean, there are people who do it, but for me, it happened this way. And the advantage of that was whatever I was doing, experience with my Vipassana and through the program, I was able to relate it to the philosophy that I studied. It was making it more and more practical for me. You understand? I think if there are Vipassana practitioners, they will, and yoga practitioners, they will know. Obviously, you'll find a connection because it is again about the body, it's again about the mind, and that's what yoga talks about. So all these things are enriching my experience as a person who's practicing yoga, as a person. No, I never see myself as a, instructor. It's like, for me, it's like, I am this friend of yours in a group study class who's just read this concept. We share concepts, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, you read about thermodynamics, I will read about
Yeah.
static electricity, and then you come and explain me thermodynamics. So I feel that I'm only doing that when it comes to my class or when I talk about yoga. Uh, so it's beautiful that way. So please start with the practice, with a 10-minute practice. Even I had this qualms of I should practice 1 hour. If I don't practice 1 hour, I feel guilty. And then,
Yeah.
no, that's just a misconception. The thing is, you practice for 10 minutes. It's okay. You can start there. And then you can move. That's how my self practice developed. Like, I can't practice 1 hour. I'm not able to practice 1 hour. It's like, who should practice 1 hour? You first practice 10 minutes. Enough. Take 10 minutes, enough. Get up at 5:50, practice till 6:10, go for your class. Or go
Yeah.
outside, go to it. More than enough. Right? Like, and then I think yoga will take the path. We need not decide on
That's so
any
true.
path. So,
I'm thinking of how, so I used to have this idea to like, no, it has to be a long practice. It must have all of these parts in it. If not, it's not, I didn't practice today. But now I see, for instance, we are doing the 21 days program. We did the beginner program. Now we're doing the intermediate program. In those 30 minutes, we are focusing so much on breath. We are getting movement. So it's a
yes.
complete practice.
Yes, and it's a good starting place, right? It's not a taxing starting place, and so it's beautiful. Like my therapy teacher used to say, so they will give, so in the therapy, no, they will give you a practice, and then the rest of the days you have to do it. So when you come for the next sitting, you will have to tick which days you did, which days you didn't. So some of the days I wouldn't have done. So I'll feel very, very sad. And she said, I'm telling you so many times, it's not that if you do this is yoga. Even if you sit and paint and if you're focused, you're able to take the time out and be there with something, you're already done yoga. Yoga has to be understood, at a different level. Uh, right? So, yeah, but we are again as practitioners, we link to mat and doing the practice. But again, there's a balance, right? Just because I said this, you cannot say that daily I will paint, so I am in yoga.
Yeah.
No, that's not going to help you with your body,
Correct.
right? The asanas are what are going to help you with your body. And for anybody to sit with their eyes closed and just be at peace, I think that's a practice which I so strongly emphasize that unless we practice today, we are not going to get it in our 70s, 80s. If we don't live up to 70s, 80s, that's a totally different story. But if you're
Yeah.
going to live up your 70s, 75s, 80s, 90s, to keep your mind under control. It's beautiful, no? Like, I'm so enthused by it.
Yeah.
That's why you see a lot of energy. Because after the moment I turned 15 or 16, right? Till now, I don't feel my age. You understand? Every birthday, there's nothing like that 16 up. Maybe before 16, I would have thought of myself as chota bacha or growing up. But once you hit that stage of, you're already an adult, every year it goes by, but you're still with the same thing, right? It doesn't make a difference.
Yeah.
Unless you realize that your hand or leg is paining, you suddenly realize that you're not able to run as before.
Yeah.
Leaving all those things, mentally you don't age at all. I think we don't age mentally even when we grow old. No, unless you have some amnesia or schizophrenia or something. I hope nobody gets it. But otherwise, if you're a sane man or a sane woman, your mental age doesn't change. So your mind is as active as it was in 16.
Hmm.
The
Yeah.
memory will go low. Of course, you'll not be able to remember, but the feeling of this is my family, these are my kids, there is nobody to talk to me. And then what will I? what am I to do? And then you get angry about the decisions your son or daughters make. You get angry about why the world is going this way. So many things, right?
Yeah.
But maybe you don't need all those things. All you need is to sit and meditate at that point in time. And that's not going to happen.
Yeah, like you said,
With
அந்த
those
ஐந்தில்
things.
விளையாதது ஐம்பதில் விளையாது.
It won't. There's also very, since I've been through a lot of, there's also another song in
Yeah.
Tamil which says uh, Nadayum Talara, when your walk gets shaky. Okay? Navadu Kulara, your talk becomes a lot muffled. You're not able to speak. Kangalum Manga, your eyes are not able to see clearly. So these are depictions of very old age. What will you do? Who will come as your escort? So in that song, they're asking you to meditate on Shiva or get hold of. But again, here we are talking about meditation. So go for you to get hold of something, because right now we are all attached to the body. We have energy in the body, we have all those things in the body, so we don't think about these things. But as you grow old, the body is a mechanism, it is going to deteriorate. So if you still keep identifying with your body as you grow old and old and older, what is going to result is misery, 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 because the physical organism is going to degenerate. So if you're in the process of just understanding that you are not merely the body or something more, slow and steady, not that tomorrow you have to leave everything and go somewhere. But if you're able to develop this understanding and then interact with the world, you'll probably able to do the same when you're old. And if this concept is reflected in all the spiritual leaders, the talks or the things that they give. If you see words of Brahmana and all, so there was a stage when he knew that his physical body is going to reach his death, or the physical body is going to go away, and there are people surrounding him crying. So how can you go away? You are our spiritual leader. And then he says a word that have you understood only? Have you understood me only so much? I am not this body. Like
Yeah.
so the human mind is capable of identifying, not the human mind. The human is capable of identifying that he is beyond the body and mind, he is something greater. And this is not what I am saying. This is what people have been saying for millennia of years. There should be at least some truth in it, right? Simply they will not keep telling something. So, and he got operated with his hand for the tumor without any anesthesia.
Wow.
And then people started asking, yeah, and it's not at a young age, it's a very old age. People asked him, like, do you feel pain? Then he says that pain is there, but it is not mine.
It's the body's pain.
So, yeah, and so the person is able to create a space between who he is and what the body is. What an extraordinary power that is, or a state of uh, to be, right? And if you see, the same is reflected in the Yoga Sutra document, which is written 3,000 years back, where you say that if you contemplate on the difference between your actual self and your body, you will know to distance yourself from the body. This is one statement. And then in a research, I think in a research, or when I was speaking with Joshna, this topic came up where we kind of converse on such topics, right? We kind of understood that what does yoga do for people? Of course, it is keeping them healthy. But what it is also doing, when you're going through a tough time, it is able to create the space between you and the pain. And you're able to handle it.
Yeah. Yes.
Right? Like if, for example, if a person is getting a really difficult disease and if he's been practicing yoga, he or she is been practicing yoga, I'm sure they have a lot of patience and mental strength to handle what they're going through compared to a person who's not been doing that. Now you can link that at some point in an asana, because some asanas are going to be difficult. Your leg is going through pain because the muscles are getting stretched. But what are we taught? Stay there, breathe. Stay there, breathe. Unless it's a sharp pain. You understand? Unless it's a spike. If it's a good pain, stay there and breathe, because that's when you calm down into the posture. And can you see this linking between If you're able to do that in your asana practice today, probably tomorrow, because we don't know where destiny is going to take us, because we don't know
Yeah.
what is going on. No, most of the things around, leave alone destiny. The things around us are polluted. The food that we eat is not pure. So somewhere, if something comes up in the body, leave very worse diseases, a fever, a headache. Are you able to pause before going for the immediate relief of taking the pill? Or are you choosing an alternative? Do you have the space to say that, okay, today I will not go for work. I will rest. Nothing is going to happen. I will go and handle the work tomorrow. First, I'm going to rest. Are you putting there first? But no, because I've seen my mom, like she's a teacher, she has to go before 8 o'clock, she has to sign the attendance at school. No matter what, fever something, pop up the crossing, run, go, sign, leave. It's a sign of dedication, right? There, people even appreciate such things. But okay,
Absolutely.
good at the appreciation time. But now when people are old, you've taken so much tablets, you've trained the body to something, it's going to react. So all
Yes.
these connections, I think that's why I mean, like if you start doing yoga, it will actually develop this ability to handle difficult situations. And what more is needed when we are able to handle difficult situations, right?
And from what you're saying, I'm also getting the sense of how we have that ability, like whatever we need to do, we have it, and yoga's helping us find it. Whereas when we're not doing it, like when you said, for instance, taking that crossing and going to work, we are putting that, we're suppressing it, and we don't remember that we even have that
Yeah,
capacity.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I've thought about this also. You see, like, and one time I always, uh, go back is like why all this happening is we don't know how to set our priorities. Right? We don't know what our priorities are. Our priorities can be anything. See, one can have any goal in life, but are we reflecting and revisiting our priorities?
Mm-hmm.
We
Yeah.
are. I feel we are not. I mean, I honestly feel even I am not. Because one day I have this as my goal, and then suddenly something in life comes up, you are distracted. And then you start thinking about something else. It will kidnap you for a few days. And slowly you'll realize like this was never my priority. Then if we are able to let go of that kidnapping and then some method to know that this is our priority. Going back to the reasons of why you are doing certain things or why you have made change. I think a lot of our miseries kind of go away and uh, yeah go. So I always go back to this, like our priorities are not right. We don't know what our priority is. Our priority might be to be simply happy, but then we either wouldn't have thought that to be our priority, or we would
Right.
have been kidnapped by something else. Right? Yeah, it is something which I also struggle. I think a lot of us struggle because our priorities are not okay. And
And
then somewhere getting that right or sitting for some time and reflecting, that can also uh, cause you less distractions, to identify a distraction and not engage with it. No? Yeah, off late I'm getting that. I'm able to identify, okay, this is distracting. This is where the distraction is. So I'm slowly dealing with it. Yeah.
that seems like a nice upward spiral from what you're describing, like how just take that 5 minutes to practice yoga, then it's taking you towards, I want to do a little bit more of this, and then, okay, I want to explore more of myself. Okay, it's becoming easier to work on my body and then my emotions. And it's just like going, we're seeing like going up
Going
and
up and up.
yeah,
Yeah, actually it's going in and in and in.
that's
It's going up and up and up. You're going in
that's
and in and
beautiful.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice. It's not all that flowery also. You do encounter, but then the support comes from the community. The support comes from the friends who are practicing yoga with you, the friends who empathize with you for what you go through, and who are able to provide the right kind of support or right kind of words at the right time which can encourage you. Together we all can achieve definitely more. It's like there's no doubt about it. It's not a corporate definition of being together, everyone achieves more. It is actually true. Together, everyone achieves something more. So I think that's where Atma Yoga Shala, I share that dream of Atma Yoga Shala of creating a community. For me, this space has to be a healing space where everybody can come and then they can just be themselves. Like a space where they can just be themselves. And then there are people who are ready to listen, and there are people who are ready to acknowledge, yes, you
Yeah.
are this and that's beautiful. And maybe learn from it. And then vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
So you come into a common pool of, people who are ready to listen, give, share. And it's not something dreamy. It's very much doable. And yoga is a space where you can develop genuine friendships, right? I feel because the entire topic speaks about improvement and betterment rather than speaking about, say, entertainment or,
Yeah.
of course, and there can be healthy entertainment also. I'm not saying it's wrong, but then it's very easier to develop deep connections when with someone who's doing yoga, who's sharing. And I think deep connections are what is necessary to ground you, right? To
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I think it's easy to get a set of. I'm not putting it down anyway, but I'm telling it's rather easy to, if you're something is running in your mind and you want to avoid, it's easier to go to a party, booze it off, dance, forget about it. That's okay. But then at some point in time, you have to come back and deal with that thing. But a community is a space where you can honestly, vulnerably talk about it, and then people can give you perspective. Yeah, that's why it's not easy, but it's still uh, better thing to do.
That is very much in line with what I was thinking of before we started the live session. I was just thinking about how grateful I am for so many things in life, especially the people, including the yoga community that we have formed thanks to Vinyasa Krama, thanks to Atma Yoga Shala. Everyone's so
Definitely.
supportive, students, teachers, everyone, and how Joshna also initiated all of this for all of us to be able to find the space and come together. Yeah.
Yes. It's like even a gratitude, no? It's like all my why me questions. I told you, right? I had a lot of why me questions when I was going, why me, why me, why me, why me. And like somewhere when such good things happen, no, you don't bother about what caused those why me questions because they've led you to a journey here. For you to, unless you hadn't gone through those things, probably you wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
For you to gain that perspective. So, and when you appreciate what you have today, like I do appreciate my yoga practice, I do appreciate this community. When I'm appreciating what I have with me today, those difficulties now are no more violent questions. They don't
Yes.
take the space. What I'm having is more valuable. Uh, Stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think that's the beauty of it. I don't even like we are complete strangers, right, Nivetha? Like, and
Yeah.
now, if I think back, there's no one moment of time where I consciously took a decision, okay, Nivetha is going to be my friend. No, what brought us together is only yoga. Same way. Like, Joshna was a complete stranger. I didn't, the first time I saw her was in one DTC class, and for us to come together to do something, I think yoga brings that kind of energy. Even our people who practice with us, I feel so connected with them. And it's no more like they all like make fun in the class, and after some difficult asana, they will laugh, and then there are some people who are very caring. They'll come and appreciate you for something. They are actually really elder people. The community sets a lot of things going, and that makes yoga, that itself, this effect itself defines for me that yoga is not limited to the asana practice that we do. It is building something bigger,
Yeah.
something big. And I get that sense when Srivatsa Ramaswamy sir's classes happen and the Vinyasa Krama community comes together. It's such a vibe. You should see them talking. You should see them having fun and discussing topics. It's like it's beautiful actually. And I hope like we are able to take this effect a lot bigger, right?
Absolutely. I would love to see more people experiencing this and sharing it with others, even if they're just taking like a couple of minutes every day in their own time to do it. Um, and I'm also thinking of how, like, I attended Sir's class a handful of times, I think 2 or 3 times so far. And like you said, just to see so many people, like I have, I like I'll see like some people are doing asanas so well. It looks like they're just flowing like water. And in some places I'll be struggling a
Seriously,
little.
no, I used to see some people are like, yeah, my mouth will be open. I'm like, oh God, how are you guys doing this? But then, there's nothing. It's just, I think they practice. They are more sincere and when they practice. That's the answer I get from everyone. They say practice, practice, practice. And I think that's the only answer.
That brings me to the last question in this live session. When we've discussed a lot about your practice or how you see practice, again, do you have any parting words for how you can make this practice a part of your life, like in any way? We've discussed this a little bit before, but if you have any parting words.
Parting words is like one thing is like if I am able to change, if I have experienced so much change, I think definitely everybody else can experience it. Because I never was a sports person when I grew up, right? I was never a physical person except for my dance. That like I like dancing and I used to dance. But then even that stopped. So I was never like this physically active kind of person. So if I being from such a state, I'm able to be at a place where I can do this practice, I think everybody can do it. And the resources are plenty. Like people are there practicing. There are genuine people you can. All you have to do is just start practicing. Like I said, 10 minutes a day, like 15 minutes a day, and understand that it's a slow process. Apparently, we are in a world where we want fast outputs. Even the corporate was driven that way. Corporates are driven that way, right? Like fast. Fast is efficient. Fast is efficient. You somewhere relate speed to efficiency, right? Like, but it is not only speed that causes efficiency. So if a train is running at a really high speed, it's not only because of its speed it's efficient. It's because of a lot of other engineering which has gone into it that is able to produce that speed and it is efficient. So with respect to yoga, I think that efficiency comes with understanding, patience, practice, and it's not a lone journey. That's what I have understood. Because I can't like simply I'm a yoga practitioner, so I'll have my own journey. No, you have the community. Because there are times when your mind overpowers you. Because it is the habit of the mind to overpower you. It is the tendency which will develop over many days, many years, probably many births. So when you have a community and this community understands this truth that yes, yoga practitioners also, have difficult times. They get angry or they sometimes they can't practice, they feel down. And then then you have a reference point in the community to talk about, to come back. So yoga is not going to be a journey which is going to be taken alone. So these
Right.
are the things. So your journey need not be alone. Second, you have to start a physical journey. You have to trust the process, get the right kind of people to hang out with, especially during a practice or your yoga circle. And yeah, the rest of the magic happens. Your perspective is changing, you wanting to study more. All these things happen. And the biggest thing is all these resources are available. You don't have to go and find a lost book or find that one teacher who is going to give you everything, that one. And yoga teaches us to be a light to ourselves. I've also seen this because
Yeah.
we easily tend to take the support of an existing spiritual teacher, which is okay. But then in my spiritual journey, what I've understood is whether alive or a spiritual teacher whom you believe, they can always only point you in a certain direction. All they can do is point you. So any spiritual teacher you take, they will advise you to be don't have ego or something like that. They will tell that or do a lot more prayers and something like that. But then they can only point you. They can't come and give you a magic and then say that one day you're going to be free from all your problems.
Yeah.
No, the challenges in life and coming out is yours. So, and yoga here exists as a tool. You follow any guru, but then use yoga. Use yoga to understand what the guru says, and then start practicing. Start practicing, and then that thing comes up. I think yoga is in that way is a tool which will help you practically do the things which you believe or you have faith in, stuff like that. No, I think that's where yoga changed. That's why yoga can be in everyone's life, and definitely the science of yoga is such a way that it is not only dealing with your physical body, it is dealing with your mental structure, it is dealing with your emotional structure. I don't think a gym does this. I mean, I can't vouch for it because I've never gone to a gym or lifted weights. But yoga is a very, very structural process of changing your mind. It is not like you do one session, you feel happy for 5 minutes, that high, that energy, and then that's all. No, yoga goes into your psyche. It changes, it changes reflection, all those things. So it's such a beautifully built process over years. So why
Sorry, I lost your voice there.
yeah, yeah, I'm sorry. I think my Bluetooth got done. Are you able to hear me now? I can
Yes.
speak a bit louder.
Yes.
So yeah, so yoga brings that. Yoga has that advantage that it is a wholesome tool, and when it is there, when the resources are available, why not take use of it? So that would be my parting words.
Absolutely. And I agree with you. Like if we want something and we have the resource,
Yeah,
let's use it.
let's use it. Let's use it for whatever goal we want. Let's use it for the goal of physical health. Let's use it for a goal of mental uh, health. Let's use it for a goal of going spiritual or becoming more effective in our jobs. Even if you develop presence, you can be more effective in your office jobs. You can be more effective in your relationships. It's all about awareness. I think every book, Ikigai talks about that. Every book talks about that. Developing that awareness. Yeah. I think I've been over into,
No,
but I
so
think
glad.
that
It felt like you condensed a lot of years of thinking into
uh,
this. I mean, I can't even say, it felt like, yeah, very short period. You've condensed it for us
I'm
and
still
gave us
naive, I have to tell
actual.
you.
Sorry?
I'm still naive. A lot of what I spoke, I am also trying to practice. But I think that's the journey. Everybody tries. Everybody tries. And this community is beautiful. I'm really grateful to Joshna. I'm really grateful to Ramaswamy sir. Grateful to God that I'm able to land at a space where I can help people physically. And I get when people come and tell me that they slept well, they thought they were not able to touch, but now they touched. All
Yeah.
that gives me like great happiness. It is their efforts, definitely, but there's a lot of satisfaction when you're able to help people that way. Yeah, I think that's what keeps me going. And lots
Yeah.
to learn, with lots to learn. I'm looking forward to this journey.
And adding a little plug here for anybody who's watching it or anybody who's doing classes with us. It's always like Aravind said, it's always nice to see others also progress with us. So always wanting to like maybe sharing it with your friends, your family, however possible. Like they don't necessarily have to do classes with it, but if they are, that's great. But yes,
Yeah,
always sharing it.
we are definitely open. We are there with open arms. That we can do. That's all we can do. Keep our hearts open and share what we learned with you. So it's great. Joshna has sent a message that we are blessed to have you. So vice versa. Yeah. So thanks, Nivetha. You are also a great inspiration for me. We should do one live session where you are doing the talking.
No, I enjoy this more. So
I will enjoy that more.
and
So
thank you
yeah,
everyone who's stayed on in
yeah.
this call. And I see a lot of comments also. I don't think we were able to
Are there
address.
any
So.
questions? I'm happy if there are no questions. There's someone who said that he watches me doing yoga with popcorn every day. I request you to cut down on the popcorn and start doing yoga with me. Yeah. So it's fine, guys. I hope this talk was of some help to you or at least kept you hooked up. And thank you for being here. Thank you, Nivetha, for asking me questions which made me get excited. Yeah,
No, thank
AYS
you for
family is the
sharing.
best.
Sorry?
The AYS family is the
Yeah.
best. Try AYS always. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Nivetha.
Thank you, everyone. Hope to see you all tomorrow in tomorrow's session.
Yes. Yeah, and tomorrow's session. Please do join until this Sunday. We have great session lined up for you. Come tomorrow for a practice. So if you have your mats, have your camera. I mean, just have your mobile set up. Join the live. Do the practice. Experience asana and pranayama to whatever extent you can. Tomorrow is going to be a great practice, and then we have a talk about food. As I told you, Aharam, food is like really important. And then we have Indra talking about food. And we have our very own Joshna taking the pranayama session. Her pranayama sessions are like awesome. So we have these three programs lined up for you. Very excited to share this with you all from AYS. Please do plan your schedules, find your time, and join us.
Yes. Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.